Hello again. It's been a couple of months since I last did a video, and there's various reasons for that, not least of which is I've had quite a lot of other work to do, particularly in my computer repair business that I run, and but more than that, I've been waiting, basically. I've been waiting to see how things developed for myself in terms of my anxiety. Now, I now like to think of myself as being cured. I now like to think of myself as being able to deal with my anxiety in whatever form it takes, and I wanted to talk on this video about what it actually means to recover from the anxiety state. What does it feel like? What can you expect? And because there are certainly a lot of misconceptions about what recovery actually means. So I want to try and put some perspective on that so that you can look at your own situation and see where you are, and see where you're actually headed, and and to know what it is you're actually trying to achieve. Now, over this last year, I've been through sort of a transformation. I don't think that's too strong a word, because it has been quite a noticeable change, and it's all down to the way I have perceived my own anxiety issues. Now, I've talked before about where I was at in terms of recovery, and I used to say things like I'm perhaps 80-90% of the way there. Now, I said that based on my perception at the time of how I thought I was, compared to how I thought I should be. And since I was saying all that, I've come to see that was in fact wrong. In some ways I was actually preventing myself from actually being fully recovered by kind of putting conditions on what I had to do, in order to be recovered. Now, I think a lot of people have this misconception in their minds when it comes to recovering from an anxiety state, that to be recovered you're not going to have fear again, that somehow you're going to end up in this kind of blissed out state where fear no longer happens. Now, I want to be clear about this. This isn't what you're aiming for. This is not the state that you're trying to achieve. At a very basic level, fear is a necessary part of our lives. It's an emotion we all can feel. It's there for a reason. It serves a purpose when it actually works as it's supposed to work. Now, if you're in an anxiety state, fear is not working as it's supposed to work. Basically, you're just afraid of the feelings of fear. That's it, simply put. You're afraid of fear. You're afraid of the way fear makes you feel, of the thoughts it brings, the bodily sensations it brings. And that is why you're stuck in this cycle, because you're afraid of the feelings of fear, which makes the fear itself worse. And this all cycles around, producing a state of continuous sensitization, which is what I've talked about before. And sensitization, as I've often said, is where your nervous system produces fear, but it does so in a very exaggerated way. And it does so with the least little provocation to make fear happen. That's sensitization. So when you're thinking about recovery, you should be thinking about getting fear back to how it should be. As Claire Weeks used to put it, you get you're aiming to get fear back to its normal intensity and its normal frequency. So everything I talked about on these videos has been aimed at helping you to achieve that. I've talked about her method, how basically she taught a technique, a method to enable you as a sufferer from anxiety to be free of the fear of fear. And that's what it's all about. It's losing your fear of the fear itself. Now, in order to get to that state, you have to go through a certain amount of practicing dealing with fear in whatever form it takes with you, dealing with it so that you reach a point where it doesn't bother you anymore. And to do that, you have to be prepared to practice putting yourself into situations where fear comes, and you're not trying to avoid it, you're not trying to switch it off, you're not trying to escape it. You're putting yourself willingly into those situations by constant practice in doing so. So if I pull all that in the context of my own experience, that's precisely what I've been doing. Now, I've talked a lot about the biggest problem I've had, which is dizziness and balance problems. Now, as I've said before, some of this is down to the fact that I had a stroke 2 years ago, which affected my balance, affected my eye movement. And that really hasn't changed a great deal. But what happened in the aftermath of that stroke was that I developed a big kind of issue with balance generally. I became afraid of any manifestation of dizziness or balance problems, and it was that, rather than the actual physical effects of the stroke, that was the problem. I turned it into a major problem because I became so afraid of it, and as part of that I started to avoid doing a lot of things that I used to do because I was frightened of the consequences of actually going and doing these things with this balance issue going on. Now, today I can say, well, I still have balance issues. I still have, every time I go out anywhere, not just when I go out, but especially when I go out, I have lightheadedness, I have a kind of unsteady way of walking about. Some days worse than others. Bright sunshine makes it worse for some reason. As I said, a lot of that is just physical after effects from my stroke, but there is still an element of this which is not, which is just plain anxiety. And that is what I have been practicing dealing with. So what that means in real terms, in practical terms, is that I go and do what I need to do with all this balance problem going on. That's not the only anxiety issue that I've had, but that has been the main one. That has been the thing above all which has held me back, made me reluctant to go very far, and this is what so many people, this is the situation they find themselves in. The way the anxiety feels for them, and because in so many cases people are sensitized and they don't know this, they don't understand what that means, then naturally they're reluctant to go and do certain things, go certain places, or put themselves in certain situations because they have these magnified fear reactions. So, as I said, recovering means putting yourself out there, putting yourself into whatever situation you've previously been avoiding, and being prepared to have these fear feelings. Now, it sounds like a pretty painful way to recover. Well, in some ways it is, yes, but if you understand why this works, it makes it a lot easier to do. Now, in order to be able to lose your fear of the feelings, you have to have practiced enough times to see for yourself that none of these feelings actually does any harm. Yes, they're often very unpleasant to experience, very distracting as well. And when you're feeling that way, your mind races along with it, with all kinds of what-if thoughts, catastrophic expectations of what might happen to you. That's all part of the whole thing. It's all part of the anxiety state. So you go ahead and practice dealing with these feelings, in however strong they may be, and carrying on in spite of them. That is so important, because that is what enables your nervous system to behave in a totally different way. Now, this is how it works. You're afraid of the feelings themselves, so you're in this cycle where you keep adding fear to the fear that you feel. Now, if you're practicing facing situations with all this strong fear going on, and you don't react as you've been doing, you don't react in, oh my God, no, not this again, sort of, response that you've been doing so much of. And you take a different approach to it and think, okay, this is happening, this is what's going on, it's not going to do me any harm, it's just a feeling, it's just an unpleasant feeling, and I can still do whatever it is I'm doing in spite of it being there. Now, if you keep doing that, gradually, because you're not reacting as you have been, your nervous system, which is producing all these feelings, starts to understand that this is not an actual threat to you. You kept telling it that it was a threat. You kept stimulating the fear feelings themselves by your attitude to them. You kept telling yourself that this is something to be scared of. And your nervous system just responds thinking, yes, that's, it has to listen and respond to what you think. So if you keep on and on telling it that these feelings are dangerous, the very feelings of fear themselves, well, of course they're going to keep coming, because your nervous system keeps producing them. You're telling it to. However, on the other hand, if you start taking the opposite approach and thinking, oh well, this is what's going on, I know what it is, I know it's harmless, and I'm going to just carry on with it there. Now, if you repeatedly do this, your nervous system starts to reclassify these feelings, even though this is the paradoxical thing about it, it's the feelings it is producing. But it starts to calm down automatically, because you're no longer keeping on telling it that these feelings are dangerous. Gradually it starts to calm down. And with that, this is what desensitization means. It's getting a nervous system back into a state as it would for anybody else, where you don't get these strong, quick fear reactions. That is what you're aiming to achieve. That is what recovery is all about. And if you think about that, it doesn't mean you're never going to be frightened again. Of course you will. Everybody is. Everybody has fear as part of their biology. It's built into them. But by recovering in this way, you're taking the fear out of fear. That's how Claire Weeks used to put it. That's exactly right. You're taking the fear out of it. So this is what I've been doing. This is what has been hard. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy. It gets easier the more you do it. Same as anything else. You're learning a skill. You're learning a technique. It takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. And yes, it's not only unpleasant, of course, to have all these feelings. It's very tiring as well. It takes a lot out of you, and But if you understand what it is you're doing and why, and you realize that by keep doing this and doing it the right way, and by the right way I mean willingly, with acceptance, not just putting up with. That's what so many people mistake acceptance for. You're not just saying, oh, get it over with quick, oh yeah, I don't like this, but I'll try and accept it, I'll try. No, you're willingly letting yourself experience these feelings. You're not trying to avoid or switch them off. Now, I've used this analogy before, but I think it's quite a good one to give you the idea of what this acceptance approach actually means. If you're trying to learn how to swim, then you have to learn how to float, obviously. Now, a lot of people that are new to this think they have to make themselves stay afloat. They're especially, I used to be like this, especially if you go out of your depth, where your feet aren't touching the ground, and you're wondering what's going to happen. So many people, when faced with that, would thrash around with their arms and legs, trying to stay afloat. Now, that inevitably leads to them sinking, and they're thinking, oh, I'm never going to get the hang of this because I'm just going to keep sinking. However, if they stop trying to float and just allow the natural buoyancy of the human body to work for them, they will float. In other words, they stop all this thrashing around with arms and legs flailing all over the place, trying to stay afloat, and just let themselves float. And then they discover that it happens by itself. Now, this is what I mean by this is what real acceptance means. It's trusting that this giving up your struggle to try and prevent or change these physical feelings of fear, is giving that up and trusting that the process will heal itself. Your nervous system will heal itself. And I think above all, that's kind of the biggest part of the transformation I've been going through. I've come to see that I don't actually have to do anything. Yes, I do have to keep going out and practicing doing things with feelings still there, but I can't do anything to heal. I can't, any more than if I broke a bone, I could make that bone heal. I got nothing to do with it. It's my body does it. And this is what you need to understand. Your body will heal itself. Your nervous system doesn't want to be in this state. It's not its natural state. It wants to calm down. It wants to return fear to normal intensity and frequency. But it can't while you keep on stimulating it. It's like, you're jabbing it all the time, saying, more fear, more fear. And this is where, by acceptance and this letting go approach, this is what cures you. This is what leads to the state where you can really say you're cured because you don't care anymore about fear. You've lost interest in it. It's not a big issue in your life anymore. Yes, you can still have all the feelings, you can still have all the scary thoughts too, but it doesn't matter anymore. And this is where I came to see where I'd been making a mistake. I was still thinking, I have to be able to deal with my dizziness problem the right way, and then I'll be cured. But no, that was wrong. I realized that I was cured because I could still function and do what I needed to do, even having this nasty dizziness that had bothered me for so long. And as I realized this, and I began to care less and less about the dizziness, obviously, my nervous system stopped giving me so much dizziness because I no longer feared it. It's the odd way it works now. So if you look ahead and look at where you are now, and think ahead and picture in your mind what it is you think you should feel like to be free of the anxiety state, then you need to bear in mind all these things I've said and to set yourself a realistic expectation of what recovery means. And it means fear doesn't matter anymore. However it comes, whatever form it takes, doesn't matter. And once you've got that state of mind, and you can still have the feelings, I still get not just dizziness, I still get other feelings too when I'm under pressure. Or, I can still wake up sometimes with a sort of a minor panic attack. It's not really worthy of calling that. It's just anxiety occasionally. Same as anyone would, really. And I can live with that. I can accept that because I know that it's all part of the deal. It's all part of the recovering process. So, like I said, look at your own situation and think ahead and think of the things that fear is still controlling in your life. Think of the things you'd like to be able to do but you're still avoiding because of what fear does. So, that's what you're aiming for. And when it really gets to a point where you don't give a damn about fear anymore, there's a certain freedom about that because you're no longer putting any more conditions on how things should be. You're accepting not just fear, you're accepting your life situation more. You're giving up trying to force anything to happen. I mean, that is what acceptance is all about. It's total lack of force or effort. There's effort in going out, getting yourself out and about, or facing up to things that frighten you. That takes a certain amount of effort. But when you're actually using these techniques, it's not effort, it's the opposite of effort. It's abandoning effort, it's abandoning control. It's giving up trying to make something happen. And like I said, there is this peace that comes when you finally realize that you don't actually have to do anything. Your body does it. You just have to have the right mental approach to the way you are. A willing, accepting approach. And that's what takes you out of this state and takes you to recovery. Now, of course, there'll always be buts. You always think of a but I can't, but this, but that. In a lot of cases it'll be, and this is something that people ask me a lot about, a lot of cases it will be patterns of thought. It'll be the kind of frightening, realistic sounding thoughts that people get, frightening ones, and their body physically reacts to those thoughts. It's all the same, all part of the same process. You can't force these thoughts to stop. You can't. They just keep coming, and the more you try and stop them, the more you try and blot them out, the more forcefully they will come. So as with the physical feelings, you just accept them as being there. I mean, you're not accepting them as being true. You're accepting that they're there. You're acknowledging that they're there. You don't try and fight them off. And, it's really, I suppose you could sum it up by saying everything is fine as it is. That you can't forcibly change it. Yes, you can use medical interventions, you can use medication to help, and certainly if you're very sensitized, that can make a big difference. It certainly did in my case. But I've come to see that it's not such a impossibility as I thought it was for so long. I thought to myself, well, I have to be a certain way, and only then can I claim to be cured. But I was wrong. I was completely wrong. I'd learned over so many so many practice sessions, shall we say, after doing it for so long and never giving up, never losing faith in this approach. And that is what, I earned the right, shall I say, to claim I'm cured. And it is especially meaningful to me because I talked about my earliest experience of fear and how I desensitized then, and how at that time I thought I was cured, whereas in actual fact I wasn't. And so many years later it came back, and for the last 12 years it's been a major part of my life. So this time I knew that I had to really defeat fear completely. I couldn't just try and sort of sidestep it like I'd done the first time around. I knew I had to face it head on and overcome it properly, as I should have done the first time. Anyway, I better not witter on for too long, but please take a good look at where you are now. Be honest with yourself. Look at what you're frightened of doing. Look at what it is that's stopping you. What is it that's stopping you? What do you think is going to happen if you attempt these scary things? What do you think will happen? And then think, well, okay, I've got to find out. There's only one way to find out, and that's to do them and see how I feel. Now, it's more than that. It's being prepared to feel any way you're feeling. Not try and change it. You're just prepared to really experience it. And I know for so many of you that sounds just ridiculous and impossible. How could you do that? How could you? In fact, I find it makes me very sad when people are so restricted. Their lives are so closed in. They're imprisoned basically by their fear. And I think I try and encourage these people to take those first steps, whatever it might be, however small these steps are. It's taking those steps towards losing your fear of the feelings of fear. Because anyone can do this. Anyone at all can do this. And, I try to say to whatever your situation, however bad your anxiety is, understand what it is that's happening. Understand, I've given you lots of information in these videos, but you can find out from Claire Weeks' books and her recordings and other sources too. Find out what it is you're feeling, understand it properly, understand what your body is doing, and then you begin to see your role in all of this. It's not something that's happening to you. It's you who are at the source. You're the source of it, because you're adding fear to fear, and that's what keeps it going. Okay, it's not easy. It's not. The concepts, as I've always said, are simple enough. The concepts, but the practice can be hard, because you're taking yourself through the fire, if you like. You're trusting in a method. You're trusting yourself, trusting your body. And for some people, that it's the thought of giving up the control they think they have just seems too much. But everybody has to start somewhere. So look again at your own life and see what it is you can do. What practices, what you can take to lose your fear of this fear, and that's what it's all about. And just think for a moment what your life would be like without fear controlling it. Try and picture what your life would be like. Fear would no longer hold you back. I mean, in my view, it's probably one of the most important things anyone can do is to overcome their fear. Nervously ill or not, in an anxiety state or not, overcoming their fear. So, yes, anyway, I think I've talked long enough now, so please get out there and practice, and if you really are imprisoned by fear, take tiny steps, take small little steps to start with. Just show to yourself that fear cannot hurt you in however small a form that takes. And this is what I talked about on my agoraphobia recording. Anyway, before I talk for too much longer, I better leave it there. So, never ever give up. Never ever give up. Never, how can I put it? Never lose faith in this approach. And you develop this rock solid faith by understanding how it works and why it works. And I keep on drumming in these ideas over and over in my videos, trying to get you to see that. It's the harder way to recovery, but it's the permanent way to recovery, and that surely is going to make it like, you know, worth its weight in gold. Anyway, I do appreciate all the comments that you make on my videos and when you write to me as well, and so many of you have subscribed to my channel now, and I really do appreciate that. And I just want to help people, because I know what this has been like. It's been so much of my life I've spent like this, but I also want everyone to know that there is a way to be free. That's what the main message is in all these videos. You can recover. And on that note, thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.